I'm Chad Hennings, former Air Force A-10 fighter pilot, 3-time Super Bowl champion with the Dallas Cowboys, and this is NFL Players Second Acts Podcast.
I'm Peanut Tillman, and this is the NFL Players Second Acts Podcast. Thank you guys for listening. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Peanut. My guy Roman, what's up? How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm very, very excited about our next guest.
I'm jacked right now.
Yeah, it's not even the Dr. Pepper we're drinking either.
No.
It's like
share, subscribe, follow. Let's read the resume.
Let's get right to it. There it is. He was a defensive lineman in the NFL for 9 seasons, which is probably, one of the lower things that he did in life. He won 3 Super Bowls with the Dallas Cowboys
Just
in
three,
the
only 3
90s era. And before he entered into the league, he was a fighter pilot in the Air Force. Ooh. And he is now a successful businessman, author, and philanthropist. Guys, can we please welcome in Chad Hennings.
Thank you.
Yo, Joe, you like G.I. Joe over here, man. That's awesome. That's awesome.
Lead off.
That's the first,
That's the first.
Yeah. My dad.
They didn't call you that in the locker room?
No, man.
Are you serious?
It was Flyboy.
Okay.
Billy Bates called me Flyboy.
Okay.
And that's what kind of stuck back in the locker room.
I think I'd have called you G.I. Joe. That's a good one.
Yeah, G.I. Joe was still hot in the 90s.
Yeah.
For sure.
I was a G.I. Joe kid. My dad was in the Army. He did 20. And I thought my dad was like Roadblock. Like I wanted to do everything my dad did. I used to motor pool, go to the armory, looking at all the guns, the Bradleys, the Abrams, the Cobras, the Apaches. Like I've been in all those things as a kid, and I just thought it was the coolest thing. And the one thing that kept me from not joining the military was football. I just kept excelling in football. If I wouldn't have got a scholarship to college, I'd have been in the Army. If I wouldn't have got drafted to the league, I just would have joined the Army. I'd have went to OCS school and just been an officer and just would have been in the military. But football just kind of got in the way of that, unfortunately.
Well, that's the beauty of both those occupations. They're so similar.
Yeah.
Regarding culture, teamwork, striving for excellence in all that we do. And I come from that unique perspective. And it was easy to make that transition from flying in a fighter squadron, flew in the first Gulf War, to playing for the Cowboys. And I guess my true claim to fame, guys, is I flew my last mission in northern Iraq in 92, and I played in the Super Bowl the same year.
Oh, wow. Thank you for your service.
No, that's how fast life changed for me. But, with the with the complement, the synergy in the cultures, and kind of the mission-oriented purpose of being in the military versus, playing for the Cowboys that time under Jimmy Johnson, it was all about, we're not just winning games, guys. We're about winning Super Bowls. And that was the first one that year.
So you were drafted the 11th round, to the Dallas Cowboys.
Shows how old I am. Man. Back when they don't even have 11 rounds
Well, when we looked
right?
that up, I'm like, 11th round, like, whoa, okay, that was back. All right, got it. But you went to Air Force Academy, right?
Yes.
And so you served your 3 years.
5 years.
5 years. So number one, what were you doing on draft day? Like, what was that experience like? Like, were people getting drafted from the Air Force at the time? Like, what was that like? And then kind of walk us through until you got there.
Truly the only other Service Academy graduate up until that point in time that was drafted and eventually played was another Dallas Cowboy, Captain America, Roger Staubach.
Yeah.
Hall of Fame quarterback. He was 20 years previous to me. But there was nobody else that had gone through that experience. I never anticipated getting drafted. Gil Brandt, Hall of Fame Cowboys player personnel director, would always follow me around at these different all-star postseason things in college at the different All-American banquets. And he says, we're going to draft you. I said, I appreciate the sentiment, sir, but I've got a commitment. I'm going to serve. And originally my commitment was 8 years because I took on the addition because I wanted to be a pilot flying jets. So a typical Service Academy commitment is 5 years, but I chose to up it to 8 years because I wanted to fly jets. So technically playing in the NFL was never an option. So to answer your question, during draft day, I was actually down in the gym just working out, and somebody from my squadron called down and, hey man, did you realize you were just drafted by the Cowboys? I'm like, well, that's cool. But here's the difference. 11th round draft pick in 1988, my signing bonus was like $16,000, man. So it was a lot of money.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Compared to today, it's somebody's bar tab. But but no, that it was just the difference in time, and for me, it was really, that's why I learned a lot about myself. That if I profess to be an individual of character and integrity, I gave my word. I raised my hand to support and defend, made an oath of office to support and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And for me to be able to try to maybe lawyer up to get out of that commitment to go play in the league, wasn't going to have that. So I tried to succumb to the realization that playing in the NFL was never going to be an option for me. So I went in full anticipation of just doing a career in the military.
So you went to the Naval or Air Force Academy, right?
Yes.
I don't think a lot of people understand the commitment it takes to go to a military institution.
That part.
So could you explain the schedule that a student athlete / student has to go through when they go to West Point, the Naval Academy, Air Force Academy? Like, give them a little bit of background of that.
It's a very prestigious, academic institution. I think I averaged 20 credit hours per semester that I was there. Aside with all the military things that are expected, you're up at 5:30, 6 o'clock, let alone make your bed, clean your room, do all that. You march to breakfast, you got your academics, you're in a uniform as a freshman or a fourth degree. You have to march in these marble strips and you greet all the upperclassmen. You go through different military training. In the summertime, I went through like survival training, survival escape resistance training, which they call SEER training. You do different internships. You visit different military bases to kind of get an idea of what is being in the active duty military is like. I went and I did what at the time was called the T-41 program. I went through a simulated pilot training program where going into my senior year, first class year, I flew a T-72 Cessna and got to the point where I could solo, took a check ride, simulating what it was going to be like going through pilot training the following year. So it's a very intense mind, body, spirit, holistically training regimen to prepare you
And how
to
old
be
are
an
you?
officer. I'm 19, 20, 21, 22 years old.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like that.
Like I don't have the discipline to do that, but I
Yeah.
guess you learn it.
Well, I'll tell you what, you talk about your parents before your fathers. I grew up on a farm in Iowa, so I was doing a lot of this stuff. That was my regimen in life, was the aspect, if you want anything in life, you got to work for it.
Yes.
I mean, nobody's going to do it for you. And it was that middle America upbringing was what, prepared me for the academy. And then I built upon that. And then going through the active duty Air Force, build upon that. It's constantly, guys, I subscribe to the sense of living a life of excellence that, you got to be your best self every day.
Mm-hmm.
You encourage others to do the same. In any organization that you're affiliated with, you encourage it, to rise to a higher noble purpose or cause. It's not about me. It's not about the individual. It's about the team. And, that's something that I have tried to live in my life. And I've been very grateful to have been on some pretty awesome teams.
Yeah. So what went into you choosing the Air Force Academy? Why not West Point? Why not the Naval Academy? I don't even know if they had the Coast Guard, if they even had an academy.
Coast Guard, Merchant Marine Academy.
Okay.
They had both. For one, probably for me, most beautiful, Colorado. Who can argue with Front Range of the Rockies? The being in Colorado, it was a phenomenal campus, and just being there, I was more of a mountain guy than I was going on the East Coast. But at that point in time too, they had a very up and coming football team. I wanted to play Division I college football. I wasn't highly recruited out of high school. I grew a lot when I was at the Air Force Academy, and I really blossomed. I was actually recruited as a tight end.
Mm.
Today I'm probably more your prototypical tight end in the league than I am a defensive tackle. But, after I made the switch after spring ball my freshman year, and, I guess the rest is history with that.
What makes you decide to be a fighter pilot? I mean, I know it's the coolest thing. I mean,
Top Gun.
Top Gun, all these things are out. I mean, is that the swaggiest position? Like, it's a fighter jet, or is it?
Those were the guys that I could use some military vernacular, but those were the one individuals that I really looked up to. And I had some of sponsors, retired military individuals that would take cadets into their homes.
Yes.
And I was very fortunate to have, my sponsor was a retired one-star general. His name was Bob Earthquake Titus. This guy flew F-4s in Vietnam, had shot down 3 MiGs, was just Billy Badass. And he would tell me stories and just share experiences of leading men into combat, of having the experiences of where his faith played an important role of, doing things you don't necessarily want to do, but you do have to in support of your wingman.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you raised that hand, you gave your word. So you have to be willing to put yourself into harm's way for a greater good. And, as a young man, 22 years old, getting ready to graduate, light my hair on fire. Let's go. Let's get after this. And that's where I lived that life for 4 years.
Yeah. So out of the 45 combat missions that you flew, is there one that kind of sticks out in your mind?
Not necessarily it was the combat missions, but I was based at RAF Bentwaters, Woodbridge in England. They're called the Twin Bases. And in our initial ferry flight, we flew a 4-ship of A-10s from that base to Incirlik, Turkey, which is outside the city of Adana.
Mm-hmm.
And for the A-10, for those of you who don't know the A-10.
Oh, yeah, the Warhawk.
Just a quick sidebar with that whole plane, for those of you, if you're looking it up on Wikipedia or whatever right now, but the A-10 was designed as a close air support aircraft.
Yes.
The whole plane was designed around that 30 millimeter Gatling gun called the Gowade Avenger. Shot depleted uranium tip, high explosive incendiary bullets, 4,000 rounds a minute. A bullet 30 millimeters about yay big. I could shoot a tank from over 15,000 feet away, 3 miles, penetrate over 2.5 inches of armor, and disable or take out that tank. I mean, it was an awesome, awesome piece of machinery to fly. But the mission that stuck out in my mind was in this initial ferry flight, and the A-10 is at the time, underpowered. It's not as fast as your F-16s, your F-15s, your F-111s that were in the Air Force inventory at the time. It was slow, so it took us, about 7.5, 8 hours to fly, and you're flying over the Mediterranean. And we had just flew around the boot of Italy in the Mediterranean, and I ended up having engine problem, my number 2, my right engine, and it ended up having to shut the engine down through an emergency procedure. And at this point in time, the aircraft's underpowered, you're single engine, you declare an emergency. We ended up diverting with one of my wingmen into the island of Suda Bay, Crete. That was something that will always live with me, as like how you work together with your wingman. I was flying the jet, going through the emergency procedures. My wingman, one guy, navigating, communicating with the FAA or the air traffic control. Another guy's helping me work through the procedures. It's just the same thing like on a team. When I'm down and was in my stands playing for the Cowboys, looking over at Charles Haley and saying, okay, what do you got, man? He goes, okay, he's coming down on you. You talking back and forth. Same type of communication, same type of brotherhood that went back and forth. And again, that's why I relate back that the two occupations were so similar in culture.
How much did you weigh? Because what's the weight limit or something to go from like a plane?
I had to receive waivers for my height and weight to be able to fly. I was too big. Too big.
I was wondering about that.
I was too big for the Aces 2 ejection seat.
Yeah.
So they weren't sure if I'd clear the tail if I ever had to punch out of the aircraft because I was just too big. I think I reported initially, I bulked up. I came in about 270, 275. And then at the end of that year, I was like at 290.
Yeah.
So it's just.
I was wondering about that. Yeah. My dad worked on fighter plane ejection seats for the F-16. Matter of fact.
Same ejection seat. Yeah.
If you could pick any plane, any fighter plane to fly, which one would it be and why?
I'd always go back to the A-10 if I had to do, what we did, but the plane that I would like to fly that was probably the most fun was a T-38. And the reason why is, supersonic jet trainer that we flew, the plane would roll 720 degrees a second. So it could go around twice in a second. We mess around, you lift your leg up, slam the yoke over and like a corkscrew going down, flying in the air.
I so want to do that.
You guys lived a life like this.
But no, it'd probably be a 38. But again, I couldn't fit into it. I certainly couldn't fit into it now.
Oh my God, that sounds like it's so fun. I actually, when I went to Thunderbirds, a few years ago, and I pulled 9 G's, and it was the coolest I've ever done. I kid you not. I'm up there, and the guy was like, you know, you got to breathe. Yep. So I try to do the breathing, but he's like, all right, Peanut, you ready? And I was like, yeah, let's go. And he flips it, and I'm just like, oh my God, this is so cool. Don't faint. And as we go, I'm feeling it. I was like, okay. And he's like, yeah, how you doing? I was like, my bad. I didn't breathe. I need you to pull 9 more G's so we can do it again. So he was like, all right. I'm about to pull some G's. And he just, and I'm like, and you have this you got the G suit on.
Yep.
And I'm like digging my heels and I'm squeezing my butt together and I'm digging my calves in the seat, trying not to pass out and keep that blood right there. Man, it's the coolest thing. If you've never done it, I don't know if I'm giving it grace the way I'm describing it, but it's probably one of the coolest things that I've ever experienced.
It's
and you're
painful.
smoked.
It's physically exhausting because it's called an L1 maneuver, and it's literally you're trying to prevent the blood from pooling out of your head into your lower extremities. Positive G's will do that. So it's like, okay, a graphic way to best describe it is like you're constipated, you're trying to go to the bathroom.
Yeah.
That's what you do. And you can pull that if you're just imagine doing that for 30, 40 seconds at a time, multiple times in an hour and a half, 2-hour mission if you're doing what they call BFM, basic fighter maneuvers, or in a dogfight. But man, that's one beauty about flying the A-10. I didn't have to pull a lot of those G's all the time.
So after I flew.
But explain basically what pulling a G, like pulling 9 G's, that's like 9 times your body weight going against you, the Earth's gravitational force pulling against you. So you're 200 pounds, say whatever, that's 1,800 pounds coming down on top of you.
And after I flew, I got to the ground, smoked. I had to take a nap because I had to drive like an hour to get home. So I went inside the bay, the hangar. I took a nap for about 30 minutes. And then I had enough energy. I drove home. I drove an hour home and then got in the bed again. And it's probably 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon and slept about 4 or 5 hours. And then woke up and then went to sleep about, say, 10, 11 o'clock and slept again. Like when I say smoked, it felt like I played 2 games. I played a game on Sunday and another game on Tuesday. Like completely just smoke you. And you guys go up and down all the time in a day for like training and stuff, right?
Well, you acclimate to that. And it's not every mission you're going to be pulling 9 G's, but you do acclimate after a while. It's just your body accommodates.
Get used to it, yeah.
So what was the hardest thing you had to learn the hardest thing you had to learn to do as a fighter jet plane, like fighter pilot?
Probably the attention to detail. I'm a big picture guy. I don't like minutia. I don't like details. I don't like nuance, but that was the thing with being a fighter pilot. It was the little things that matter. It's procedure. It's, there is flexibility is the key to air power. When you get missions, there's a lot of times that we would brief a mission, whether a training or a combat mission, and you brief a certain scenario. Then you get out to your target area and you talk with a FAC, you talk with a NALO guy in the air or guy on the ground, and the whole tactical situation that you had briefed changed. So now what do you do? You know, and it's just the training that you have, you end up making the adjustments and go. It's just like making halftime adjustments, you know, at halftime in a game. It was the same there, but there's a little more at stake. But that's where I think for me, it was the ability to think outside the box, to develop that skill set, pay attention to detail and thinking outside the box and being creative, you know, on the spot and think quick. You can't hesitate.
That probably helped you in football too.
Oh yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm saying. It's everything.
That's exactly what a coach would tell you to do.
You're not even thinking, you're just reacting.
That's exactly what a coach would
do. And
do.
a lot of it, you know, when you're flying, pulling G's, it's muscle memory. A lot of that is muscle memory, but it's putting yourself through the discipline of having to do it over and over and over and be willing to fail and learn from those mistakes and do it over and over and over is where, you know, again, it's a skill set me up for life with that.
You spend 5 years in the Air Force. There's a 5-year commitment. How do you go?
Well, actually, I only ended up doing 4. My commitment was 8 years.
Oh, you're 8. Okay.
But this is how I call it a God thing, guys, just because in 1992, or the latter part of 91, 92, our armed forces, if you recall, in 1989, in the 90s, the wall came down from Berlin. Soviet Union is now no more. The Cold War scenario is essentially over. We just did our thing. Then our armed forces are trying to downsize. Not enough guys get out, so they made waivers. They waived my commitment time. So I went from 8 years to 4 years. And this is where I raised it's a crazy story how it all went down, but I raised my hand and said, hey, I'll get out of the Cowboys. Jerry Jones had just bought the team from Clint Murchison and, Tex Schramm and Coach Landry at the time in 89. And I'm like, are you guys, do you know who I am or whatnot? But they said, yeah, well, come on, we'll give you a workout. So I ended up flying before I separated, flying from England at London Heathrow Airport, flew back to Dallas to do a workout, not sleep. I had I had a phenomenal workout because I stayed in shape. When you're deployed, there's not much to do except work out,
Right.
And bulk up. Ended up having a great workout. Coach Johnson came up to me afterwards and said, Chad, we like what we see. When can you get out? I said, Coach, I literally saluted him. I said, Coach, I don't know. I'll go find out. I'm going to find out. So I went back, submitted my paperwork. Within 3 weeks, I was out processed out of the Air Force, moved my wife and myself from England back to the States, getting ready to go for first training camp. That's how fast it happened.
Yeah, we've had this. I probably had this feeling or moment when I was 22. How old were you when you entered the league? 22?
22.
22. Yours is a little bit different. You're a bit of a grown man at 27. Is your rookie year. What was your welcome to the NFL moment? You come in that locker room. You think you've accomplished some stuff.
Did you go to the White House?
Some missions.
I was
I was like, did you go to the White House?
No, this is he's walking around here, Warren Moon.
Oh yeah.
We my welcome to the NFL was we had been scrimmaging for a couple weeks. We were going to go down to San Antonio. We were training campus in Austin. We were going to scrimmage the Houston Oilers. So I'm dating myself here again. And we're on the sidelines. My position coach, Butch Davis, was first time we get to hit somebody else. It's live. Everybody's live. I said, okay, coach, everybody's live. Everybody's live. Yeah. You go out, kill him. Second series I was in there, we do a little stunt in the middle. I come around the corner and I earhold Warren Moon.
Oh, damn.
Oh, Lord.
Wearing the red jersey, guys. Blew up, big brawl fight.
Oh.
Jimmy goes, get that rookie out of here. And I'm sitting there, he's there chewing me up and down. And he goes, what the heck do you think? I said, Coach, Butch told me. I'm pointing at Butch. Butch told me it was live. And I look over at Butch. Butch is walking the other way. I go, so my come to Jesus. Well, I realize how it is, man. So
they'll fire you before they ever.
Yeah, that's right.
There's
No, but
doubt about
that's
it.
a hilarious. I laugh with Butch about that now, but
He was just trying to get you going.
get me going.
He
But
got it. Mission
Again, I was a
accomplished.
literal guy. He thought, okay, you don't hit anybody with a red jersey,
Yeah,
dummy.
yeah.
But I thought, everybody's live, coach. You said everybody's live.
Literally, everyone we've had on this podcast, when they've done, they scrimmaged with another team, they was like, oh yeah, the team brawl. We had a big old team brawl. Like that was just a thing to do. Even back when you played, we played.
Oh, man. We would always scrimmage. The Raiders would always come into town. And it was like every other series was a brawl.
I think they're the dumbest thing ever because somebody gonna get hurt at some point.
I
just
loved
because it's.
I loved him. I love practicing.
Remember we did it with
teams.
Miami?
Yeah.
Big brawl in Miami and Carolina.
I love practicing against other teams because you get tired of seeing your own teams, the same plays. And like you said, man, competition ratchets up and emotions will fly. I mean, you guys were so much, we look at the game now and we think it's different than when we played. So I know in the 90s what the game was, the physical conditions that you guys play. I mean, at least we got a day off every 7 days. I don't even know if you guys had that.
We got single practice. That was our day off.
Yeah. See.
We get an afternoon off or it'd be a walkthrough. But how the game has evolved. I talked to those guys that played in the 70s, how the physicality of those games, man. There's no such, quarterback, everybody goes on. There was no roughing the quarterback at the time.
Yeah.
No, they had 2 steps.
Yeah.
2 steps. So
That's crazy.
what was it like when you walk into that locker room in, 91, 92, and you got Hall of Famers all over the place? A locker room that is, now known as probably one of the wildest locker rooms ever assembled in NFL history. We just didn't know it at the time. What was that like going from where you were at to that locker room?
It was culture shock like you wouldn't believe. I sometimes sat there and clicked my heels together. I'm not in Kansas here anymore. I've never laughed so hard in all my life being around some of these fellas. Just the humor, and there's a lot of testosterone flowing. But these guys, I can honestly say, from all those Hall of Famers, I've never been around a group of guys that were more selfless. Do whatever it took for the team to win. And I'm talking, Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin, Larry Allen, Charles Haley, Darren Woodson, all these guys, Hall of Famers and future Hall of Famers, that it was unbelievable. And it was a great leadership laboratory, really, on seeing the elite of the elite performing at that level and what it took to continue to perform.
How did you find that balance of 27 as a rookie? You have all these other people who are probably leaders, but you come from this different world. Like, where was that balance at? And now, how did you actually get used to that? Like, I don't know if anybody's ever had an experience like that, pretty much is what I'm saying.
What was intriguing to me is I was, when I came in, guys would be guys. Like you said, you wanted to be a soldier. Little kids, when we grew up, we played Army.
Yeah.
Or you wanted to emulate your favorite sports hero, professional athlete, whatever that is. And it was that when I got in that locker room, guys were not intrigued. They could have cared less what I did at the Air Force Academy regarding my football career. But hey, tell me about flying those missions. What was that like?
Yeah.
I'm like, here you're an all-pro and you want to hear about my rinky-dink flying a mission in Northern Iraq? Yeah. Tell me about that. And that's what it was really intriguing. And that's where kind of my mind opened up to that individual value. You never know. Don't have that. My perception of reality was not necessarily reality in regards to the other guys. They're just normal dudes that have a specific talent, and they've learned how to utilize that skill set for something that's pretty special. But to your point, it was all about realizing what I could offer to the team,
right?
And just from a little bit different perspective regarding guys, I've been in the real world.
Yeah.
Quote unquote, I had a real job before I came here.
Second act.
And, particularly for the rookies coming in that are just out of college. And I'm telling you, it's like, hey guys, it's not about you. I mean, you're a rookie. You got to prove it all over every day. When you go out there, you got to prove yourself, and you got to pay that price every day. And that's why I think those teams are so special.
Yeah.
I mean, we should have gone 4 in a row.
Yeah.
Back in the day, but it was a great experience.
Tell me the mindset you have to have. You're flying a mission, and then that same year you're playing in a freaking Super Bowl.
I went through a lot. For me, it was just the transition of being a pilot, having that mindset, to now I'm a defense. Well, Jimmy tried to put me at defensive end. We had coming in, I think we had 5 defensive linemen in camp. And this was back in the day when 2-a-days were 2-a-days.
Oh, yeah, it was hard.
In Austin, Texas.
Heat.
You guys been in Texas?
Yeah, I'm from Texas. Yeah.
It wouldn't be unusual. I learned a lot about myself because first practice, I think I lost 14 pounds in a 2-a-day. And I didn't know about hydration at the time. For 14 pounds, I had to drink 2.5 gallons of water just to make it even, net zero. And so I learned a lot about IVs and hydration at that point in time. But, I ended up making the team, but I was inactive for my first 8 games. And you talk about a blow to the ego here from former Outland Trophy winner, unanimous All-American, academic All-American, supposed the guy was the man, in college football. Now I'm not even dressing. I'm standing on the sidelines. And for me, it was, granted, I hadn't played football in four years, but for me, it was a blow. I went up to Coach Johnson halfway through the season. I said, Coach, I'll do whatever it takes to get on the field. He said, okay, Chad, you're running down kickoffs. I was L4, R5, right down the middle. My job was to run down there and blow up the wedge.
Love it.
And that's how I got on the punt team on that. So I volunteered to play special teams as a, D tackle. And that's where I, tell a lot of guys, you do whatever it takes. And the more things that you can do for that team, you guys know this,
Yeah.
the more difficult it is for them to get rid of you
Yeah.
in the long run.
And sometimes the lower they pay you.
Yeah.
They pay you less when you can do a lot of things. Right?
Yeah.
See, special teams, no special
Nah,
teams.
never special teams. That's not my thing.
So you're military veteran, NFL veteran. You've had 2 good careers and 2 jobs. I want you to talk about what was it easier for you to transition out of playing football because you already had 2 really good jobs, or you had 2 careers already?
That was probably the most difficult transition, was actually after football, after the during the second transition. And I'll say this was because, again, the comparable cultures, and I went from, military, they're telling you what to do. You're going to fly this mission, then making the team with the Cowboys, your mission is, what your mission is.
Yeah.
Win football games, you work out, off season, do whatever it takes, right? But now I get to the point I can be whatever I want to be.
Yeah.
Who am I? What do I want to be? And that's where I think my struggle, and that's where I counsel and mentor a lot of young guys that are separating from the military and or professional athletics. First question I'll ask, who are you? Peanut, who are you? Well, Peanut, I played so many years in the league, blah, blah, blah. I think, no, man, that's what you did. What you do does not define who you are. Who are you as a person? What's your identity? Wrap around. And that for me was trying to figure that out, going through a lot of self-awareness, a lot of asking myself certain questions in that regard. And when I figured that out, that's where I realized that, man, I can do anything that I want because I know who I am and where do I just want to serve.
Yeah. And how long did it take you to figure that out, to figure out who you were?
Well, it took me, I struggled with that for a good year.
Yeah.
Year plus.
When you say struggle, what is that?
Well, it's like, okay, I felt, because growing up on a farm, being in the military, being a professional athlete, that I had to jump into something right away.
Right.
If I'm not doing something, I'm wasting my life, as opposed to taking my time, figuring out where I want to be, what best works for me. I jumped into a couple things that I probably shouldn't have too quickly. And, I got an MBA and getting burnt financially on a few opportunities, things that I kind of learned the hard way. And that's where I counsel guys, take your time. If you're financially able to do that, take your time and invest in what your passion is and where you feel that you can plug yourself into.
So what are you doing nowadays to keep you busy?
That's the beauty. I do a lot of different things. I have a commercial real estate business based in Dallas. We're a boutique real estate firm called Rubicon. I do a lot of public speaking. I talk on things that we're talking on right now: core values, identity, living excellence. I've written 3 books, authored 3 books, and now same things. I started a men's ministry called Wingman. It's all about discipleship of particularly bringing young men up and realizing who they are, as men. So I do a lot of philanthropy, and then, I'm a husband and I'm a father. I just became a grandpa, man, about
Congratulations.
a month ago.
They said that
that's
changes
awesome.
you, though.
Yeah.
Oh, it is life transformation. When you see your child being born is one thing, but when you see your child give birth to another child, you realize that it's the legacy, that this is going to go beyond just me.
Yeah.
And that's something that's multi-generational. To me, it was very humbling. And it realized that, now I really need to work harder to improve the world around me and to make it a better place for my grandson.
Out of all the hats that you wear, or the ventures that you're doing, what's one of the ones that gives you the most gratification?
Being a man of God.
Okay.
My faith.
Yeah.
And that translates to everything else that I do as a husband, as a father, as a member of my community. All that derives around that aspect of my identity as to who I am.
We always talk about your influence, what makes you who you are, how you're able to accomplish all these different things. And it's usually because of people pouring into you. And so if I was to bring up this situation, Mount Rushmore, who would be on your Mount Rushmore of influence on you to help you get to where you are right now?
I think my parents would be first and foremost, just instilling in me that sense of purpose, work ethic, etc. But then I'd go back to my high school football coaches.
All right.
Other than my parents, an immediate family, my coaches were the men that had the most impact on my life that I wanted to emulate. I wanted to be like my high school coaches. And that's, again, not the sidebar, but I encourage coaches that a lot of times, because of certain personal situations and family situations with kids, they don't have that. And the coaches are maybe a lot of times the last obstacle before that kid goes down the system or before he falls through the cracks. And for me, I love coaches. And I think that coaching is one of the most noble professions that there is. So on my Mount Rushmore, my parents, my high school, my coaches early in my career.
You want to make that all 4? You get 4. I was going to let you.
Well,
get
my
2.
mom and dad, and then my 2 coaches, Reese Morgan and Jerry Eckenrod, and Daryl Schumacher. I'll give you some more. My high school football coaches and wrestling coaches. I wrestled too. Yeah.
Did you win a state or anything?
I won state my
You
senior
look
year.
like you won a state.
What was your weight class?
I was a 215-pound heavyweight
215.
in high school. Yeah, I graduated. I was 6'4", 215. When I went into the Air Force Academy, I graduated 6'6", 255.
Damn.
So I was a late bloomer.
24 sacks though. You're showing up.
Balling.
That is good, man. Chad,
Appreciate you.
honestly, man, thank you. I didn't even know your story until we read it. And it's beautiful what this game of the NFL has all done for all of us and how it's let us all be in each other's lives. First and foremost, thanks for your service. Thank you for your dad, my dad, everybody that served this country, man.
Yeah.
And, it really is truly awesome. Your story is amazing. I continue to hear you talk. You do all these other things. I want to look up your wingman ministry as well. I love the concept of that. So thanks for joining us, man. I really appreciate it, man.
Thank you, guys. Enjoyed it.
Yeah. You my wingman?
Yeah, man, I'm your freaking wingman.
There you go. I like it.
I'll be Goose.
Yeah. Appreciate
I don't want to
it.
be Goose. Goose got taken out, bro. I don't want to be Goose.
This is a new version. This is a new version.
Okay, I don't wanna be
This is the new version.
Okay.
Every time I do it, you cut me off. So
No, I didn't know.
thank y'all for listening. Please like, share, subscribe, follow Apple. Oh, give us 5 stars. iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts. Give us a listen. If y'all don't listen, we can't do this without y'all. Y'all make us better. We need y'all. Help us out. Be our wingmen and women. Close us out.
Oh, I'm Roman Harper. This is Peanut Tillman. This is Chad Hennings. We out.